I'm going to give you a recap of today's operations. I just got there, took a trade, and left. I arrived late to the market and had to leave early. So this is where this system continues to shine for me. You don't miss the day's opportunity. The market keeps giving opportunities all day long, regardless of time or anything. So, I'm going to quickly show you the narrative of why I took the trade, and now I'm going to explain the analysis thoroughly. The trade was a short. It was this short right here. Now, I'll explain to you in detail why I took this short. Let's first look at the narrative. I arrived when the market was up here before this drop, so I wanted to position myself at the price. The first thing I saw was that this hive had been taken out, and since I arrived a bit late, although that divergence signal is not something I use daily, as I've told you, I use it once or twice a week at most. Today, I saw it quite clearly. I saw that the Nasdaq took this hive in 15 minutes and closed inside this candle. Therefore, we have a rejection of the hive, and in the SP, it didn't take the high by quite a bit. So, in light of this, when I had that narrative of rejection and divergence, this movement began to happen. This strong downward movement began to happen. And I just waited to see what would happen. I don't try to guess anything. I don't hit the floor of movements to the tick. I used to with limits, yes. But honestly, the strategy that gives us much more peace of mind is 1,000 times better to do it when we have confirmations in our favor. We can get really good entries that way, yes, but why would we want to take an entry like this? Especially if we are going to scalp. Many people strain themselves trying to catch sniper entries and all, just to grab a few points. If you're going to take those kinds of entries, it should be because you're aiming for a trade with a substantial amount of points. Otherwise, there's no need. Because if we are scalping, the price in a correct narrative will develop a decent movement with a good number of points. All we have to do is catch a portion of that with a good confirmation, and that's it. So, there's no need to anticipate anything. I say that the price should start to fall, and at some point, should begin to give me something to hear. Well, he tried to react. I think seen here in 5 minutes were the only opposite candles. Then it could be taken as a kind of responsible for having taken out anything important here. The price tries to give that reaction and doesn't achieve it here by fractality. Like a hidden is in the day, in which the price leaves and returns to it. And from there it continues its idea. What was the first up after taking out this wolf? The price returns to it, does the first up and leaves. Then this wick is the first up. Look how I read what is in 5 seconds being in 1 minute. So here comes the price. They're going to put up a new logo. Therefore there are all the displacement laws. It can be taken, and knowing that in first up that is the objective, it comes and takes it out, signs it, and from there until the continuation, then the price here, well, here it is, the execution in trading view. But in reality I do it here. This was the trade. and here was the target. So I'm going to explain from here right away. Well, the price stops here. I see that it's like that last move before starting to break all this. So it could also be taken as a kind of responsible. So here I was just reading the price. Obviously, if we look at it in a higher time frame, in zoom out, this could be to look for longs, but remember that we come from what? From this. We already know that the price can revisit the origin, and in the best case scenario, in terms of function fulfillment, taking this logo is the logo of this displacement law, and it is the logo that becomes a potential target once we reject the high of higher temporality. So keeping that in mind, I just start reading the price and see that we have several imbalances. The price begins to consume the first one. So what did I tell you when an imbalance is being consumed? And there are several of them. It is probably waiting for one of a higher temporality. Let me explain here that I flow better with TradingView, and I'll show you everything over there in detail. So while here in 5 minutes, the price had done a rebalancing around here. It never left me any imbalance here, in fact. The two things I mentioned in the last videos, both going to touch a higher time frame imbalance, and the topic of order flow itself in 5 seconds. As there are so many imbalances in 1 minute then. Going up here, we have this one here at 5, there's another one above, but well, there was the 1 minute fractal, so it's a good confluence. And here, why am I looking for a short? The main thing is to have reasons to go in one direction. Already at this point, because the price gave me a good downward move. I come from the rejection of taking out this high and rejecting it in my high time frame, which is 15 minutes. What makes me think this will continue distributing various things upward first? I don't really like the price in certain body closures. After the 50, when a 50 is going to give me a hint that it will be useful. After such a strong movement, I usually get this. It receives. It keeps making a strong movement. Touches that. Pushes strong. Showing me a good amount of reaction from here. Not there. It just got crossed. As if nothing. It's 50. And we had closings below. The opening of the next one is obviously also going to be with a body. Because if this candle closes with a body, the opening of the next candle will be practically at the same price. Sometimes with a couple of ticks of slippage, depending on the volume at the time. What are the reasons? If this person in charge doesn't give me confidence, I have to see where all this starts. Okay? I have to see where all this starts and where the price began to appear from. So, what was the price doing to me? impulses, retracements, impulses, retracements, impulses. And then this thing that happened here in the news did not respect the impulses the price was making. It breaks this area, and we get this continuation to the upside, which means we have a pullback flip to the flip, a first up, and a continuation that can become a potential target. All that is part of that first up, the area that is a first up, a first touch, will always be a weak area, an area that the price can potentially be sweeping. Because we already know that the price makes the double bottom after taking out and sweeping the first touch. And the other main reason for me, I have published quite a lot in case studies in my Discord, is when the price makes this kind of strong movements and gets close to a level, especially the 50, and does not touch it and starts to react for me. This is usually an induction that is going to be sweeping, and then to now touch 50 and give the move that could be expected from there. I posted several cases of this at different levels. So it's a case study that I've been putting there for quite some time, because I always saw it happening, and it happened to me at the time because I was mostly doing flips. That the price took me out of the flip to go touch something, and there I get the real movement. Dave talks a lot about the first flip being fake, but more than the fact that the first flip is fake, it's about seeing if the flip that is making the price hit our activator to look for entries. So for me, it's important that it hits the level and be able to start reading the price to make an entry. So, what was I seeing? Watching it from a minute, we have been seeing the price in a fractal way. Impulse down, impulse up, 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 change of structure. See how I don't get lost with these lows, because I don't take this movement here. This low didn't break my previous valid low, nor did it break my previous protected high. This one is not protected yet, because it hasn't made a new low. So anything that is in here is going to be a range within this current price. Everything that is around here is going to be a range within this current price until it makes a new low, or until it takes out the previous high, protects. And looking at this from a fractality perspective, if we go up in time frame, look at how it starts to become clearer where the lows are. There is one here, another one here, and another one here. See how all of this is simply internal. So, what happened here for me? if what we want is to refine and not take it from a minute when we still don't quite understand its price. This way, I can raise the time frame until I find the candle pattern in a higher time frame. So here we have it catches exactly in my new logo what is internal. So where is the real structural change here? Not here, as this happens to many people. They consider this a structural change. The price comes, takes that out, then they are looking for longs, and it turns out this was the first up, and the double top takes everything away. So it is here, then I take this area that is for me the structural change, and in 4 hours, we can see there the candle pattern. Despite a lot of consolidation here, the price was simply doing... The bar moved, came to this wolf, came here, then came here, then here, then came from below, and from there took that. It's a little off due to the timing, but basically here, this corresponds to this high, this corresponds to this low, this corresponds to this high, this corresponds to this low, and this corresponds to this movement. And there it is now. So what happened here? This was my main reason for looking for the short. And look, that's precisely where my target is. This goes here. This here. This. There's my target at that 50. Then the fact that the price hasn't touched this, has invaded this fractal this way, made me think the price is going to go for this. No, here, I'm not thinking that. Here, I'm thinking that while I see how the order flow is developing in all of this, all the narrative behind that trade idea, that was my main reason. It was my target. So let's see here how the price was developing. I hope you understood well all the narrative, all of my reasoning behind taking an entry against this, and with a possibility of a target here. I just didn't want to aim for more than that, because it provided the possibility of the price reacting from that, and just needing to touch that 50 to laugh. In fact, it touched it with a good reaction of almost 20 points. And there I am, falling. So, well, what I'm seeing is this whole zone is that area that only showed up in 5 minutes. These candles. And I saw this small build up here, that formed in 5 seconds, before breaking this here, all of this here, before breaking that area, and giving us all this displacement, and giving us the imbalances generated by the price around there, then I can say that there's a position here. However, I'm not taking an aggressive entry from there. And look, it still worked out. I mean, if we take this area, price comes, touches it there, and starts to give this reaction, and starts to make the price here. Alright, there's a responsible one to take this out. The price comes back to it moderately, continues, then swipes the first up, and rejects. And the first confirmation falls for me that we are facing a possible short. Why? Because bullish fails to fulfill its function. The double bottom tab doesn't give us a strong movement, and we are facing an area that is important for me to see if the price is then failing to break it. If it's broken, the responsible. It reaches here to the origin, although this is a swing failure. I want to see the origins as a flip, as a reversal. This is a failure to set a new low and continue, but it gets here and finally breaks. This has been the candle pattern in 1 minute. Price comes, makes a high, makes a low, makes a high, takes out the low, and takes it out in bodies, which is a good indicator for us as well. Now I see that the price is going over here, that it reaches the 50 sweeps, these highs, and goes back here again. Seeing this in 5 seconds, it's quite positive. What is my confirmation to enter then? Is this perhaps an imbalance, displacement of the continuous movement, continuous in one direction? So what do I wait for to enter? And well, I don't want this to be a failure of putting a new wolf, and the price level is still here for me. What is a negation of this that I talked about in the last video of imbalances? Don't see imbalances in a mechanical way and start taking 3 from them, but use them to support your narrative. Everything that is generated opposed to your narrative, wait for it to be violated or inverted. Well then here, this bullish imbalance is generated, but I have the bearish idea. So what is the first thing I want? That the price tells me that it won't be delivered from that bullish imbalance. That it's not going to come, touch it, and keep going. Because here, it started to build a bullish flip. So I want to make sure that this imbalance won't act against me. This is the way I used to trade ICT if I had a bullish bias. If I wanted to dig longs, I had a buy-side liquidity here. What I was waiting for is that the price would go in the opposite direction, generate bearish PDRAs, and for those PDRAs to start failing and create the reversal. So that's how breakers are formed. That's how inversion is formed. That's how all of that is formed. And that's the way. I explain TFX And that's why you see my videos about system functions and failures, and how I read the order flow through that, applying what gave me the best results with ICT, which was waiting for something to form opposite to my idea, and then the root of that. So, seeing that we close with a body here, notice that all the confirmation is from Edith and FX, a responsible flip, the tab to the flip, rejection, and finally, the last thing I wanted was to close this imbalance, which would already be the inversion fair value gap. So it just closed on this candle at 11.19. I entered directly into the market. I protected myself. Here in the high desk, it can be somewhat risky. Operating DTFX, because the price after giving a continuation may come to take the high, to make the double top, and then continue. But since it was a matter of inversion and imbalances, one usually protects themselves in those candles, where that is generated.
Now, another thing I liked while doing that reading was taking my entry here. We left a bearish imbalance, bearish imbalance.
The price came and touched it after I was already in the entry.
It put me in a bit of a drawdown, but this reaction from it came immediately. Then we closed the bullish imbalance and are respecting the bearish imbalance,
which is very positive. What else did I like about this? Because I like that the price does that. Instead of going directly from my entry. Because there it's already generating all the liquidity, all the induction. It's making it seem like they want to push the price up, generating all that liquidity so that later they can break through forcefully. On the other hand, when the price simply moves and hasn't generated liquidity, that's when the price generally has to rebalance that movement. Or in the worst case scenario for us, it will become the double top to keep going well from there. So, whenever your entry goes directly in favor of your direction, consider the possibility that it might make a pullback, swipe the first up, and then really move on. That's why I tell you in my videos to try to take the entries where it would be the double top, when the pattern is complete, when the strong move is about to happen. That's when you want to have your entry. So it starts doing this. The price starts denying the possibility of a double bottom. If you look at the whole price, notice that here, it could validate this 5-second candle pattern and continue here. It swept and failed to fulfill its function. So seeing that all the bullish moves are failing, you realize you made the correct price reading. I simply placed the target here at 50% of what I told you. The price kept falling. So that's all there is behind one of my trade ideas. Or, well, this specific trade, but in a discretionary way, sometimes with balances, sometimes without imbalances. But since I just made the video about imbalances and just today the price reading came out with that, I take the opportunity to show you well. I got a bit sidetracked. I arrived in the afternoon. and I arrived right as they were setting up. It's MD of books. The price simply accumulates, makes a range. And these days, I was talking to you a lot about it. It does the sweep and then goes in the opposite direction. Coincidentally, we had this fractal here, responsible for taking out this low, a small bullish candle then. This setup was very good. I didn't get to catch it, but it was much better than this one. I've talked a lot about this setup on Discord as well. This setup turned out to be very nice. Whoever understands this is already better than 90% of traders, because this is where many get frustrated and lose. Here the price simply, after a strong movement and a strong impulse, accumulates to induce sales, making it seem like the bulls are done, and those sales get ruined. So, here two things happen. Those who started selling get ruined, and those who are looking for the continuation of the break-enter. So all of this, everything an MD does, is generate that liquidity. So whenever you see the price make a strong impulse, it starts to accumulate, and they have a nearby point of interest. The first expectation you should have is that the price reacts back to this range, and in the best case scenario, they distribute in the opposite direction. That was the other setup that, as I say, I don't even know what really happened here because I didn't even see it. I arrived when the price was around here. It made this drop. It gave me this setup with this price magnet. And done. Alright then, here you go. Hope it helps a lot.